So you should have 20, you have 20 people registered for the class. I'm not sure where they all are.
It's a Saturday morning, so that's, it's okay. So.
Okay.
So we'll go through it. You guys will have it recorded, and if someone wants to watch it later, or however you guys do it, that's, they'll have that opportunity. So.
I do have a question, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
I guess it would be with the MSFA coordinator. Will this class actually be credited through MSFA?
What kind of credit are you talking about?
Like
low SAP?
Well, not yes, basically low SAP for being participant with the course.
Oh, sure.
Okay. I didn't know how that was working actually, since you guys are virtual.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to figure out a way to send you all an email that says you were here.
Okay.
Kate's jumping in right now. I can tell her we've got to figure that one out.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yep.
So good morning, everybody, and welcome to Becoming an Ally to Foster Diversity and Inclusion in the Fire Service. I'm excited to be sharing with you this morning virtually. I wish we all could be in Ocean City together, but I think we have another year, a little bit of virtual learning before things get back to normal, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share this message with all of you. So as we get started today, I just want to kind of set a little reminder here. So today is about developing a culture of respect and inclusion. Today is not about me pushing my personal beliefs on you. It's about working together to look at strategies to develop a culture of respect and inclusion. So that's really important to remember as we go through today's conversation. And I have two simple goals tied to this presentation. One, I want to help you understand your responsibility as a fire service leader or future leader in your role in fostering diversity and inclusion in the fire service. And two, I want to offer you ways to become an ally. My assumption is all of you are here and because you have good intentions. For many of us, we try to be very well-intended, and we never mean to intentionally cause harm to others through our words or through our actions. However, there are times when we are completely clueless to the impact our actions may have on others. We may do and say dumb things because we're uneducated, not because we mean to be harmful. So it might surprise you to know that people often make mistakes, like they make statements which they intend to be very supportive or complimentary of others, but they end up being problematic because we're not always aware of our poor behavior. And that problem tends to repeat itself over and over again. So it's good to have these conversations to educate one another. So I hope that today's class will inspire you to rethink your patterns of behaviors and your communication with the goal to become more inclusive, compassionate, and effective. Oops. All right. So a little bit about myself. So I've been in the fire service for 20 years, so almost 20 years. It's kind of flown by. I got a later start in the fire service. I've been a volunteer firefighter, EMS officer. I'm a fire inspector, CE instructor. Outside of the fire service, I started my career as a licensed substance abuse counselor, social worker. I worked in mental health and substance abuse with at-risk youth. I transitioned that after about a decade of doing that. I entered the world of marketing and did that for almost another 10 years. So from there, I made a career change. I ended up going back to school, getting my doctorate in business administration and homeland security. I wanted to bridge my love for public safety with what I was doing in the work field. So I became a federal agent and a physical security specialist at NASA. I'm responsible for the day-to-day security operations. And I also am an adjunct professor at a state college here in Ohio. I teach in the business program and I teach marketing courses. So let's talk about course expectations. So as we look at today's course expectations, one, I want you to ask all questions that you might have. This is a forgiving space. What's not forgiving is disrespect to others. So the expectation is that you'll ask any questions and you'll feel comfortable doing that. But again, what's not forgiving is being disrespectful to others. Ally trainings are not a one and done thing. You got to keep building. So I hope that this is just a building block as you progress, and that you start to attend some other trainings and grow your skills. I want you to think about, what is it that you want to, what do you want to gain today? What is it that you hope that you'll learn today? Think about that now. What's something that you want to get out of this session? And as we go through today's conversation, make a list of unanswered questions, because there's going to be things that I might not cover. We have just a short amount of time together, and things that you really want to know more about. If I don't have an answer to that question, somebody I know will, and we'll get you an answer. Because as I always say, I'm not an expert in all things, but when we come together as a group, we can get the answers that we need. So course resources. I am super big about assigning homework and giving course resources. One of the things that I like to do when I teach is always give you homework, because I truly believe that if we don't take action after we learn something, then things are not going to change. So I like to offer resources and downloads to help you implement what you've learned today within your own organization. And I'll make all of those available to you. These articles, I got a list of different things. All you have to do is just shoot me an email, and I'll give you a password to be able to access those. And of course, there's no charge for that. That's just my way of information sharing, because that's what it's about. We're here to learn and support one another. Oops. All right. So let's talk about, as we look at being an ally, let's talk about the 3 common ally mistakes. They're being too overprotective, being just a bystander, and being too loud. So in addition to saying the wrong things that might be offensive, we can also be disrespectful and ineffective in our approach to being an ally. These wrong things that we might do are often well-intended, like I said earlier, but it's important to remember that we're human and we do make mistakes, but we can continue to learn and grow from those mistakes that we make. It's important that we are open to hearing and thinking about the ways that we can improve ourselves, how we behave, how we have conversations with others, and that we're willing to educate ourselves. There are 3 common ally mistakes that we tend to make, and we're going to look at these 3 in depth a little bit more. So, all right. So the first one is the overprotective ally. So, and when it comes to being an overprotective ally, it's important that we don't make assumptions. We have conversations, we ask for a solution, and our goal is, how can I help you be successful? So a few years ago, a female firefighter reached out to me for help. She said that her fire chief was discriminating against her, and I started to ask her why she felt this way. And this is what it led up to. She said she had posted on social media an announcement that she was expecting, and started to share that among her colleagues at the department. So her chief and all the members congratulated her at the next business meeting. And then the chief after the meeting pulled her aside and he said that he was pulling her off the truck and putting her on light duty since she was pregnant and that she could just do fire prevention and enter fire reports to stay active. She went home. She was angry. She felt that the chief had discriminated against her because she didn't want to be on light duty. And her doctor had already told her that, she could perform her duties. So she reached out to me for help in the vent. So I actually happen to have a relationship with this chief, and this seemed so out of character. So I asked for permission to reach out to him. She consented. So it turns out the chief made an ally mistake. The chief went into that overprotective ally mode. He wanted to protect the mom and the baby to be from injury on the job. So he thought putting her on light duty was the right thing to do. He never meant to discriminate. He thought he was being accommodating and being an active ally. So this story is a key reminder that we can't make assumptions about what others need. We need to have a conversation and just ask people, how can I help you be successful here? Remember, well-intended people often make mistakes through their statements, with what the things that they say, they intend to be supportive, but those things that they say end up being problematic. So remember that, sometimes that when we make these statements, we say it because we want to be viewed as a good person. We want to be viewed as someone who gets it. And these statements that we make, they end up having the opposite effect than what we intended, and we cause a larger divide. So, the bottom line is don't make assumptions, have open conversations. Just say to people, how can I help you be successful here? And let them tell you what it is that they need. So the next ally mistake is bystander behavior. Most of us at one point, we've witnessed someone being mistreated or ridiculed, and we did absolutely nothing. We didn't want to get involved. We heard that inappropriate joke and we said nothing. As I became educated on inclusion and diversity, I felt so ashamed of the times that I didn't speak up or respond in a way that I could be proud of. I kept thinking, I don't want to get involved. I'm just going to stay away from it. If I don't laugh, if I don't participate, then I'm not a part of it. But really, I was a part of it by allowing it to go on. This is most challenging when it comes to family and coworkers. Speaking up means we're risking something. At times, we feel it's easier to let derogatory remarks slide by without comment to avoid confrontation or making the situation worse. Perhaps we fear not being liked. We fear not getting a promotion in the future because we will be viewed as someone who stirs the pot. So we just kind of stay silent. Sometimes we don't do anything because we don't know what we should do or what we should say. However, there are consequences for everything that we do or we don't do in life. Have you ever been on the other end where you've been ridiculed or mistreated and nobody stuck up for you? Maybe there were some people that you thought you could count on to have your back, but when push came to shove, they just stayed silent and you felt betrayed. Betrayal is a lousy lesson to learn, but it is the very byproduct of bystander behavior. Once someone has betrayed your trust, it takes time to rebuild that level of trust again. So when we don't speak up, when things are inappropriately being said or directed towards our coworkers, those people lose trust in us. There's far too much bystander behavior, in our society. And it's not a matter of people not caring. Most people do care, but it's rather a matter of finding the courage inside and to be able to take action to say, this is not okay. We shouldn't be talking this way. What we need to remember is that, again, there's consequences to everything that we do or don't do in life. So we've got to be willing to step up and not just be a bystander, but be part of the change. And this is where it's up to the leaders in the department to send a message to every member of the fire service that we all have an obligation to speak up when we hear things that are not okay. We need to teach people how to speak up. We need to establish an open door policy to communicate those concerns. And we need to practice that, speaking up. But we definitely need to do something to change that bystander behavior within the fire service. All right, so the next one, being too loud. So a lot of times people with great intentions they become such an advocate that they're so loud that people can't hear the message that they're trying to speak, and they do more harm than good. I always, when it comes to, I have a son who's 23, I still want to call him a teenager, but when he was younger, he would want to tattle on his sister. And obviously she would have done something wrong to him and he had a legit complaint. But the way he came across was so loud and he carried on that I couldn't hear the message he was trying to deliver because he was being too loud. So as an ally, we have to be very careful that we are not too loud. We have to ask ourselves, is this an effective intervention? What I'm trying to say, am I intervening in an effective way? Am I seeking to educate others? And am I doing it in a respectful manner? So those are some things to remember as we start to advocate and become strong allies, that we make sure that we're not being too loud and that we do it in a way that is respectful and we seek to educate others. That way people can hear the message that we're trying to deliver. All right, so let's talk real quick about microaggressions. Microaggressions, these are the everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, insults, whether they're intentional or unintentional, but they communicate kind of a hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to a target group of people based solely on their marginalized group membership. Microaggressions can be committed against any such group that's marginalized within our society. People of color, women, people who are gay, people with disabilities. So we need to be very aware of microaggressions. There are some great videos that demonstrate what microaggressions are, and for example, if you look at this picture, the one says, "Nurse, can you find me a doctor?" The female's the doctor. My husband's a male nurse, and he says a lot of times, in the hospital setting, people will look past the female doctors and look at him as if he's the doctor because of the, and that's kind of that microaggression, that, hey, can I talk to the doctor? It's like, wait, she's right here. And so asking somebody, do you speak English? Or saying, are there any doctors from America here because somebody has an accent? Well, guess what? We have a lot of people in this country who are American citizens that have an accent. So it's very important that we are aware of microaggressions, and that we start to look at those. And I have some video links on my website that I really encourage you to, it goes back to that homework part, that you take a look at those so you can kind of understand, what microaggressions are, so that you don't make the mistake of saying some of those things. And speaking of homework, there is a really great book. It's one of my favorite books, and I actually have a PDF copy that I can share with you for educational purposes. And this book is called 35 Dumb Things Well-Intended People Say. So when I read this book for the first time, I just wanted to crawl under a rock because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've said these things. And, here I thought I was being a good ally. I thought I was doing the right thing, but here I said these dumb things that, I didn't know because I didn't take the time to educate myself. And so it's important that we look at some of the statements that are in this book. And these are statements that well-intended people say that may actually cause more harm than good. And most of us have said some of these things at some point in our lives without knowing it. And we didn't know that they were hurtful or offensive. So, but as we break down each of these pitfalls, we need to look at the intention of the person saying that statement and what they're trying to convey. That way we can start to educate others and make sure that we're not widening that diversity gap. So I encourage you to really, reach out, get a copy of this book through the PDF that I'll provide you through my website, and read this. This is such a great read. If you do a book club, this is a great read for a book club. So, and you'll be surprised because, again, most of us, we intend to be, we try to be good allies, but we sometimes say dumb things based on our own ignorance. So this book for me was life-changing, and I encourage you to check that out. All right, so what are like some of those dumb things that people say? And I always, this is one thing that I always hear a lot of. People say, well, I'm not racist. Some of my best friends are Black, Muslim, Asian, or, I'm not homophobic. Some of my best friends are gay. But when people say that, their intention is to let others know that they have they have experience with people from those other groups. They think that they're trying to build rapport and credibility, but there's a bigger impact. You know, having a friend from a different group doesn't give you a membership card to that group or make you an expert. It doesn't mean that you understand their experiences. It doesn't mean your friends' experiences are the same as others either. The impact is the comment is often viewed as offensive and it leads to doubt. So that's something we need to be careful that we're not saying. And I see a lot of that on social media and at some of those other places. Well, I'm not racist. I'm not homophobic. You know, I have friends or my so-and-so it falls in this group. So we just need to be careful of that. So that we're not, you know, our own ignorance isn't getting in the way. And these are some of the things that book I mentioned earlier will cover for you. All right, so let's talk about women in the fire service. So most of us in the volunteer fire service, we have a recruitment and retention issue. One thing that we know, when I conducted a recruitment and retention study for my dissertation, which I'll actually be doing an hour webinar tomorrow on that. And one of the things that I learned from that study is that women are 3 times more likely than men to volunteer in general. Not just, I'm not talking about the fire service, but I'm talking about the greater overall everywhere, that women, they have a heart for service. They want to volunteer. But what we know is that less than 10% of the fire service they consist of women. So what does that tell you? That tells us that we are missing out on a category, a demographic category that wants to serve. You know, and for a long time, the fire service was very male dominated, but change has happened. We have to accept that times are different, change happens. I'm thankful for that change because it wasn't long ago that women and minorities were not a critical part of the fire service. Now we're starting to see women and other minorities in leadership positions. And that's great to start to see people that look like the communities they're serving engaged in the fire service. You know, I was the first person in my family to become a firefighter. I was the first female hired to serve on my fire department. That came with some challenges, but it's great to see change and a shift in culture. And speaking of culture shift, let's talk about that. So like, here's some things to think about. You know, in 1971, a woman could not do a lot of different things. A woman could not get a credit card in her own name. It wasn't until 1974 that a law forced credit card companies to issue cards to women without their husband's signature. How crazy is that? You know, think about that. That's not that long ago. The 70s were not too long. You know, I was born in the 70s. So, but to think that you couldn't get a credit card in your own name, it wasn't long ago that women could get fired for being pregnant. Women couldn't serve on a jury. Women were unable to, you know, fight on the front lines. We know that there's been a shift for that. Women could not get an Ivy League education. So Yale and Princeton, they didn't accept female students until 1969, and Harvard didn't admit women until 1977. And again, that wasn't very long ago. It wasn't long ago that women were allowed to be sexually harassed in the workplace. That didn't change until 1977. It wasn't very long ago that the pay was different for women and men, and we're still fighting that. And as far as for health insurance, women had to pay higher for health insurance. So, you know, those are some of the things that have started to shift, and it hasn't been very long ago that they did shift. So a lot of times I hear people say, I don't know why we're still talking about these issues. You know, things have changed. But if you think about it, excuse me, in the context of time, it hasn't been that long since these things were in place. So it's important for us to keep that in mind as we continue to progress forward, because we definitely don't want to go back. So that kind of takes me into my next thing. You know, what message is your department sending to women and to minorities? What message are you personally sending? So when I joined the fire service, my grandmother, she was so excited when I said, Grandma, I'm going to fire school. She was like really pumped up. You see, she always wanted to be a firefighter. But according to her and her era, women were not welcome. And we've come such a long way since then. But we know we still have work to do. So I ask you this, what kind of culture are you allowing in your firehouse? Do you turn a blind eye to racial jokes or catcalling? You know, are there half-naked women plastered in your station? Are you offering the same opportunities to all members, regardless of race or gender? So, and then I'm going to flip this. So if you're a female, what message are you sending to the future of our fire service? You know, are you female? And if you're a female, are you actively saying you get along better with guys than girls? And that you worked hard to fit in and you don't want a girl bringing in drama? When you say that type of stuff, what message does that send to the next female recruit or female looking to join your firehouse? We need to be accepting. We need to embrace diversity. And I ask you this, is the environment that you created, is it family friendly? Can my beautiful grandmother or your 4-year-old daughter or granddaughter walk in and not see or hear anything offensive? That's the question you need to be asking yourself as you walk around the firehouse. Is your environment, are you being a good ally, you know, within your environment? We need to remember the firehouse is not ours. It belongs to the public. So if you wouldn't say it in a public library or elementary school, then you probably shouldn't be saying it in the department. Be the role model our young members are craving. So often I hear our seasoned generation saying, these young people, they don't have respect. They don't have that. They don't have this. Well, be a role model to them. Give them those examples. Teach them respect and how to respect the firehouse by keeping their mouths free of discriminating comments and propaganda. One of my proudest moments was when the assistant chief who was against hiring females told me that I proved him wrong about women in the fire service. That was one of my proudest moments. He was not ready to accept that change, but he didn't have a choice when I joined. But I remember when I left that department, when it was time for me to resign, he gave me a big hug and he said how wrong he was. And to me, that was just, you know, we broke down such a barrier with that. And so now there's been other women who've come after me, and it makes me proud to see that happen. So for my grandma, you know, my grandma always wanted to be a firefighter, and she didn't get that opportunity until she was in her 70s. And you're probably thinking, what? So, but you know, she, at the age of 73, she actually joined a rehab unit. They gave her a set of turnout gear, and she got to live out that dream she couldn't live out before because of discrimination. She always wanted to join the fire service. They told her no, but at 73, she got her first set of turnout gear, and she was able to provide rehab, and she's really enjoyed that. Obviously she's not doing that now. She's in her 80s and has had some health issues, but my friends, that's progress. We went from my grandma who never had the opportunity to serve to being able to serve, and many of you have been a part of that change, and I'm very grateful for that. So let's talk about bullying and gender within the fire service. This is something to really think about as we talk about women in the fire service, because we know that there are different forms of workplace violence that targets women. And a lot of times it's more subtle and it impacts them differently. Women who experience bullying in the workplace, they have higher rates of long-term sickness. They have a higher rate of impact to their mental health, and the possible reasons for higher rates among women and you know, being bullied, they feel excluded. They end up sticking with that fire department because they don't have a lot of options. A lot of times men who are in bad environments in the workplace, they'll bail, they'll find another opportunity to leave, where historically women have been limited on the fire departments that were accepting to women. So they would stay in these environments and continue to be bullied again and again, to the point where they would become physically and mentally ill. So it becomes very stressful. So it's important that we are familiar with that. We remember that bullying, it comes at a cost, whether it be to men or women. You know, we have to make sure we're creating an environment that is friendly. So setting women up for success. Some of the things, you know, I talked earlier about that women want to volunteer. We know that women are 3 times more likely to volunteer to serve a community in whole than men. So what are some of those barriers? Why are we not seeing more women? Well, we haven't always been the most friendly in the fire service of setting women up for success. And it starts with gear. Are we giving women gear that are too big and it impacts their safety? When we give women gear that doesn't fit them and causes it to become a barrier for fire training, it sends a message that we don't care about them and that they don't belong. And if when I joined the fire service, I was given, boots that were falling off my feet as I'm crawling around. I'm trying to hold them on. My gloves were way too big. And when I teach recruitment and retention in person or this class, I bring a pair of oven mitts with me. And, I want you to put, next time you're in the kitchen, stick a pair of oven mitts on. And then I want you to start to perform daily tasks with your oven mitts. That's what it's like for a woman or even a male with smaller hands to wear improper fitting gloves. So think about, as you're going through fire school, if your gloves are not fitting, what a barrier that is. So, that's a problem. We set women up for failure by not giving them gear that fits. So it's getting snagged on things, it's dragging, it's big, it becomes this barrier. So some of the other things that we do is that we make assumptions rather than saying, here's an opportunity, who would like to join? We assume by gender that certain people want certain opportunities. Historically, what I've heard and have experienced is that a lot of times people assume that women want to be an EMS. So they'll push them to the EMS side, or they'll, push them to jobs that are less dirty, so to speak. I remember we were doing a fundraiser when I first joined the fire department, and I looked and I said at the assignments, and I said, why am I in the kitchen? And the person making the assignment, she says, oh, I figured you'd want to be there in with the wives and do the cooking. And I said to him, I appreciate your thought. It was well intended. However, asked my husband, I'm not a good cook. I said, I'd like to be relocated to trash duty. I said, I'll clean up trash. I'll do whatever. Please don't stick me in the kitchen. But, he made that assumption that that's where I wanted to be. And again, it goes back to that. He was trying to be well-intended, but he made an assumption and a stereotype. So yeah, have those conversations. It's all about communication. Here's I want to show you this video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but it's a great video about how women, and this happens a lot in the fire service, they change their self to fit in. I'll hear a lot of firefighters say to me, oh, she's just like one of the guys. She's just like one of the guys. But what happens is women join these male-dominated professions, and sometimes they change who they are. And it's not just for women. This happens with everybody. People join it and they start to change, who they are to fit in. So let's watch a little bit of this.
What's up, Jim the Ninth?
Welcome to BRO Capital. Yeah, so you'll be up on the 4th floor with investments and, what? The Tigers are up by 20? Yes! Anyway, it's entry level, but your resume was by far the strongest. I'm sure you'll fit right in.
Thanks! I still think it's unbelievable that I'm really here.
Unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable.
Ugh, I'm so excited. I have a really good feeling about this. Good morning. Hi there.
Did you see? They hired a ball of you.
Morning, gentlemen.
Hey, What's the difference between a porcupine and a BMW? With the porcupine, the bricks are on the outside.
Yeah. Good one. So, why do spiders weave webs? Because they don't know how to crochet.
Is that like a sport or something?
Like with the needles and, you know?
Hey guys, staff meeting. As you can see, we've got a big fat failure on our hands. So, finance wants answers. Ideas?
Excuse me.
What's the priority here? Why are they even asking what they're asking? Simple, straightforward. I don't really know what they're asking.
Guys, let's bring finance in and knit our strategies together.
What? Nah, you're being too soft. We gotta be aggressive. Yeah, we gotta be aggressive.
All right, okay, let's put a pin in it. Who's down for 2-for-1 wings and Swifties?
Hey, we got everybody?
Yeah, that's everybody. All right, first round's on Gronkowski.
Of course, now who knows the standard? What the?
Gronkowski.
Pearl? Did she always sit there? I don't even recognize her.
So then he says, I know this suit is expensive, baby, but at my apartment, it's 100% off.
She tells better jokes than you do.
Hey guys, staff meeting. Well, these results speak for themselves, but finance is still asking for.
I say we go for it, and if finance doesn't like it, they can kiss our ass.
Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Let's go. Happy hour, Swifties.
Is that everybody?
No, hold up. Not everybody.
So there's another 3 minutes that video, and I have that video posted on my website. I encourage you to check it out. But the basis of the video is that Pearl had to change who she was to be accepted by the group and for her input to count. And we hear a lot. Different people coming from different backgrounds enter the fire service, and they feel like they have to change to fit the culture. So we have to really look at the culture that we have so that we're not trying to change who people are and what their values are. So I encourage you to take a look at the video, watch the rest of it, because it does have a happy ending. Okay, so let's talk about being an ally during times of racial tension. And this is always, people are like, oh, we're going to talk about that, but we have to talk about these difficult things, these difficult conversations, because it exists. So let's talk about the Black Lives Matters, Blue Lives Matter. So as I mentioned earlier, I do work full-time in law enforcement. So when I think about Blue Lives Matters and Black Lives Matters, and I have a typo here, so I apologize, that, to me, we need to remember Black lives is a race and Blue lives is a profession. Blue lives started, when we look at the flag, it was intended for fallen officers. It started with a good purpose. But what I know is that at the end of the day, when I leave work, I'm not in law enforcement. I'm just me. When someone of color, when they leave their job, they're still Black. So it's really two different things. And Black Lives Matters, it didn't start as an anti-law enforcement group. And it really, the foundation of it does not promote violence. We need to realize that it was started because there was a group of people concerned that people of color were not being treated properly by law enforcement. And this isn't something new. There's been criticism of the police that dates back to the beginning of policing, but was ignored until the 1960s. So it's important to think about that. So the criticism, it started to come to light back in the mid 1990s when people started to actually challenge racial profiling. And even President George Bush, he actually spoke out against this. So, the Black Lives Matters movement, they were looking to develop relationships between Black communities and police to reduce actions of violent force. From what I found, and this part, I don't know if it's true, but it was my understanding that was actually started by 4 women. And I'm still trying to find, the research to support that. So, but like I said, it was started just like the whole Blue Lives, with the whole flag, everything was started with these great intentions to be supportive. What happens is when things start to become political, that's when things start to get, we definitely have to watch. So what happened was, we have the blue life symbol, that's the thin blue line American flag that serves, to recognize the fallen and the living law enforcement officers across our country. But what happened was Blue Lives Matters became a response to police criticism. That's where things started to derail with the whole Blue Lives Matter thing. Blue Lives Matters, it became a resistance to the call that we need to start looking at our law enforcement, that there's some things that are not right happening in it. So we need to remember that. So we need to be very careful as we're sharing on our social media, and as we're sharing in general, we say all lives matter, Blue Lives Matter, because it's deeper than that. It's not about, we have to be careful that what message are we trying to send, because what's wrong with saying, yeah, let's take a look at how our law enforcement and our public safety representatives are behaving. How do we work together to create unity? So we have to be very careful, what it is that we're saying, what messages that we're sending, because we want to be supportive. We need to listen more than we speak. We need to become informed and educated. So one thing that I will never do when it comes to Blue Lives Matters and that type of thing is that I would never, I no longer share the Blue Lives, the symbol, the slogan. Now, if it's in response to an officer who's fallen, then I would share it because that's an appropriate use of that. But for me to start changing my social media when people are speaking out against police brutality and putting that up on my thing, that sends a message that I don't care about the minorities who are being mistreated in this country. And I think that we can all agree that there are a handful of law enforcement officers that don't behave well and leaders that look the other way. So we need to think it's just like kind of like, in the fire service, we have members of the fire service who steal, who do things that end up in the headlines, and we're not proud of them. Just like, me in law enforcement, I'm not proud of those people that take advantage of the power that they've been entrusted in. So, do your own education, become informed, learn the history. And then, as you're looking to be supportive, reach out and say, hey, I can't imagine what you're going through or how you're feeling during these times. I'm here if you need it. Offer to give your time and talent to Black-led organizations and Black leaders that are doing frontline work in your area. Ask them, how can we be supportive of your efforts? What do you need from us as an organization? Show that you're involved and that you care about unity and you care about reform. True allyship is not just talking. It's about the work. It's about taking an active process. So if there's something that you don't understand, just ask your brother and sister firefighters, how does this make you feel? What can I do to be supportive? Because we can't make assumptions of the things that people are feeling and the experiences that they're going through. So, how can we be supportive? I always say, think thumbs up or thumbs down before you share and link on social media. Think about what you're posting. Is this an effective intervention? Are you doing this to educate somebody, or are you posting or sharing something as a response of an emotion because you feel a certain way? If you're posting a response or something out of anger or as a response to something that you don't like, then you might want to think about it. Are you doing it in a way to educate others? Are you doing it in a respectful manner? It's important to definitely, think about how your words are going to come across. So let's talk about the LGBTQ community. All right, so we need to think about our Firehouse Talk. So, a lot of people, I hear things that say, well, I don't care if they're gay. I don't care, as long as they don't bring that in front of me, or, as long as they don't try to come on to me. And it's like, really, and when you say that, some people will say that stuff and they think that they're being accepting by saying, well, I don't care what you do in your personal life, just don't bring it here at work. But guess what? When you say those types of things, you just put somebody in a box. Sharing aspects of one's personal life with coworkers is a normal part of everyone's workday. And here's what I'm going to say to you. Maybe you have religious beliefs that say to you that you don't agree with being gay, or you don't agree with being transgender, and you're allowed to have those religious beliefs. There's nothing wrong with that. That is your personal belief. When it becomes a problem is when you become disrespectful, when you start to make comments and you start to treat people differently for those things. Because again, sharing aspects of one's personal life with coworkers is a normal part of everyone's workday. Conversations about spouses, friends, and family help form bonds of mutual respect and trust that support a productive workplace. We know that many more LGBT employees are now feeling more comfortable with these conversations. However, there's still some work to do because these employees definitely feel that they feel some fear that they're going to be rejected, harassed, or threatened by other employees. And they're afraid that by sharing who they are will prevent them from opportunities for career progression. So I really encourage you to take a look at the Firehouse Talk that's happening. And like I said, I always tell people, I'm not trying to, if you have a religious belief, that's your personal, that's for you to, that's your belief. But what happens is when you let that belief impact how things go in the firehouse, that becomes a violation of the law. So it's all about respect. And that's what we need to remember. It's not up to you to educate somebody else on how they should be living their life. It's up to you to be respectful and show respect and show the same opportunities and make sure that you provide a safe environment so that people want to be a part of your department. You want to be a good ally. Again, like I said, it's just respect. There's a great training. It's called Safe Zone training that you as an organization, an individual, you can get your department trained in Safe Zone training. And it's all about allyship for the LGBTQ population. And you can actually get a sticker and put that up. And a lot of people say, well, why would I want to put that sticker up? But what does that do? It sends a message. It sends a message that this is a safe place for you to talk about, whether it be your partner or to talk about, who you are as a person. So it just comes down to respect. And you need to learn to speak up when you hear a negative comment or joke about a minority group. Practice speaking up. Sometimes we don't like confrontation. So it's okay to practice those things at home in the mirror or as a group. Practice having those conversations. Practice being able to say that this is not okay. I also teach a class on candid communication, and we work on that. We actually practice. How do we speak candidly when people say things that are not okay? It doesn't always come easy to people because we're always taught by our parents, usually, or our school, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say something at all. So we don't like to speak up and say, hey, knock that off. That's not okay. But we've got to learn how to speak up. We've got to practice that. Be inclusive. Make sure your environment's inclusive. Show your support for diversity. One example is to let our LGBTQ friends know that you offer a supportive environment. Again, the safe zone thing is a great training to take. You can put this the sticker up, get involved, learn more about inclusion, use correct pronouns. If you're unsure what a person wants to go by, just ask. And I get so frustrated with people when they're like, about this whole thing. Well, I don't know what to call them. And it's like, okay, well, not everybody, you call them, what they want to be called. So it's not about, again, it's not about what you want or you believe. It's about showing that person respect. And if you're not sure, just ask. Make inclusion a clear goal. Our commitment to diversity cannot be just about one category. It's got to be about every category. And remember, equal rights for others does not mean fewer rights for you. It means that you are creating a culture of respect. All right, so what do we do moving forward? So we've covered, we've kind of, covered some very high level things today. So one, my homework to you, I guess, is that I want you to work on being a good ally, to practice allyship. And what is allyship? It's taking an active stance against discrimination and prejudice. So take notes here. Think about what you can do to be a good ally. This is a term that describes someone who acknowledges and appreciates differences in people's and that come from another group than them. An ally is someone who's safe. It's somebody that you can be open to talking in front of. An ally is someone willing to stand up for the rights and well-being of others. The word ally doesn't necessarily mean activist. Remember earlier when I said be careful of being too loud. And when it comes to being a good ally, sometimes it comes down to communication. If you're working, with somebody from another demographic, just say, hey, I want to be a good ally. Tell me, how can I help? How can I help you be successful and supportive? Because I know that, we're in an area where you are a minority. And is there something that we're doing wrong? It's open communication. When I joined the fire department, our fire chief says, I don't know what to do with you. We've never had a woman involved. And I said, let's have conversation. When you're not sure, ask. And I would like permission to be able to share with you, when there's something that I feel that's not right based on my gender. And so we had that mutual agreement and it worked out well. So when it was time for me to get my Class A uniform, and the uniform place only had men's stuff, and I'm 5'1" at the time, 120 pounds, they tried to give me men's stuff and it looked like I was swimming in it. And they tried to keep altering it. It looked horrible. Our chief went to bat and said to the uniform place, you find her a uniform cut for a female or have one made. And so to me, that sent a message that he cared, that, that I was important to him. But again, it goes back to having, conversations and communication. So what is inclusion? My homework assignment for you is to practice inclusion. Inclusion is intentionally building a community in which each individual is recognized, has access, and participates and belongs as a valued member. Just because you have minorities on your department doesn't quite mean that they feel that they're included. I love this quote: diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, and equality is being on the party planning committee. So think about that as you're developing policies and procedures within your organization, as you're developing recruitment and retention strategies. Think about who is being part of those conversations. Is it the people that look like the people within your community? And maybe you don't have anybody on your department that represents one of these groups. It's okay to get somebody from the outside and say, hey, we want to develop a recruitment, retention, planning strategy meeting, whatever. And we really want to reach out to this group. Would you be willing to provide us some input? Again, it goes back to communication and saying, I'm ignorant on this. Please help me. People will respect the fact that you're willing to ask for help. So taking action, again, I mentioned, we need to establish policies and we need to train people to those policies. What does your discrimination policy look like? Start to look at your department. Are there things that we need to change? A lot of times people will ask me about the term fireman and firefighter and what I feel. And this is what I always say. When we go into teach fire prevention, and let's say there's a group of us and you're constantly saying Fireman Joe, Fireman Joe, Fireman Joe, that sends a message to all those little girls in that classroom that only firemen are welcome as part of the fire department. So I always encourage the use of the term firefighter, especially when we're doing fire service education in the schools, because I want every little girl to know, and not just little girls, but anybody in the classroom to know that there's a place for them on the fire department, regardless of whether, they're male or female, that we have an opportunity for them to serve. So that's why I like the term firefighter, because it sends a message that it's inclusive to all. And I want every little girl to know that there's an opportunity for them to serve. Conduct an assessment of your organization and make the needed changes. And speaking, I'm going to go back. So in this picture, this is actually me as a little girl. And the crazy thing about this picture is this was taken, I think I was like 2 or 3 at the time. And the paramedic in the back next to the Gold Cross ambulance ended up being my very first EMS captain. So I was going through a stack of pictures. And when I found this, I thought, how cool is that? Who would have ever thought that things would kind of go full circle? So. All right, so here's what else I want you to do. I want you to think risk assessment. We are great at thinking about risk in the fire service. So think about, what are the risks involved in taking a particular action? Even as harmless, as it may seem, what about that action? What are the risks? Who might be hurt or endangered? So, and this is the same with our policies and our words. Think about that. We think about that when we carry out missions or actions, but what about as we're developing, policies or events and things like that? Can our wording hurt people? Absolutely. Who needs to be included? So as you're developing things and policies and procedures, like I mentioned before, think about who needs to be included. It's about giving everybody a voice at the table, because we want to show that we respect everybody. So, we've kind of went through a high level of tools when it comes in, some information on becoming an ally. But here's my contact information. Again, I encourage you to reach out. I'll share that. If you email me, I'll send you that resource link. And I did want to open, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask questions, and we can get those answered. I see Walter's on here. Hi, Walter. Well, if nobody has questions, again, don't hesitate to email me, reach out. Like I said, it's all about communication. If I don't have an answer, I definitely will email somebody who might, because I am not an expert in all of this. It's, again, when we come together, that we come together as a team, and we bring all this knowledge together when we come together as one. So thank you so much for spending an hour with me talking about this topic that a lot of people run from. So yeah, as Kate says, this is some of those touchy subjects. So we but we got to talk about it. So. Well, thank you all. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. And hopefully I see some of you guys in the recruitment retention class tomorrow. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
California Casualty has been endorsed by the MSFA for 10 years for its auto, home, and renter's insurance. It is our honor and privilege to protect those who protect our communities. Happy 10-year anniversary to the members of MSFA. Thank you for all that you do. For more information about our program, please visit www.calcash.com/MSFA. We look forward to seeing you at various local, county, and state events.